The bitter rivalry between Real Madrid and Barcelona is almost always defined by the sheer drama on the pitch. What truly makes El Clásico the single greatest rivalry in sports is absolutely everything surrounding it. When you think about what makes a classic game legendary, the pure theater, the raw intensity, players throwing themselves into every single tackle, this matchup has it all. Ultimately, it is about the fans, the raw emotion, and that electric stadium atmosphere. For 90 intense minutes, the soccer world stands completely still to watch these global giants wage war. It is a match of global proportions. It does not matter if you are tuning in from Tokyo, New Delhi, New York, or Lagos. Your location is completely irrelevant because this is the one clash that sports fans everywhere absolutely latch onto. I am using the word fight quite literally here because there are moments where we see more actual physical brawls than beautiful soccer. It is absolutely criminal. Every single time this massive derby rolls around, certain Madrid players step onto the pitch just to hurt Lionel Messi. He is throwing a cheap shot at Lamine Yamal. Why are you even talking? That is a straight red card, things are boiling over. Absolutely no attempt to play the ball there. None. It is just a sad, pathetic shove and nothing more. While fans remember the jaw-dropping goals and trophies, many of the biggest El Clásico victories did not happen on the pitch. They were won in the transfer market. The shocking whispers are spreading fast. He is not heading to Real Madrid after all, but rather to Barcelona. Behind closed doors, these two powerhouse clubs are locked in a relentless war to sign the absolute biggest superstars in global soccer. And that is because winning a high-stakes transfer war carries a powerful double impact. One team instantly upgrades its squad, while simultaneously blocking their biggest rival from doing the exact same. A prime example of this savage back and forth went down in the summer of 2026, when both clubs hijacked a major midfield signing from under the other. Let us start with Bernardo Silva. Bernardo Silva, another player who has been heavily linked with a move to Barcelona. For several seasons, Barcelona openly admired the Portuguese playmaker and was constantly rumored to sign him. It made perfect sense. Everything about his style of play screamed Barcelona. He was small, incredibly technical, with a truly magical left foot. Virtually every single transfer window, a new rumor surfaced claiming he desperately wanted to move to Camp Nou. However, the roadblock was always the financial situation. The Catalan giants constantly struggled to clear up enough space under La Liga, strict financial limits to finalize the deal. If you have identified him as your top target, that is great. But how do you actually sign him? What sort of offer can you make that Manchester City will accept that is acceptable for Bernardo Silva himself, while somehow complying with the strict guidelines of financial fair play? All of this is happening while you are trying to register Andreas Christensen, Franck Kessie, and maybe even Jules Kound, along with Cesar Azpilicueta and Robert Lewandowski. When you look at the balance sheet, the math simply does not add up. While all of this was happening, Real Madrid was quietly keeping a very close eye on the situation. They knew that if Barcelona failed to make the deal happen, they could swoop in and sign one of the finest midfielders in Europe themselves. And that is exactly what they did. Driven perhaps by the massive salary offer or the sheer legendary presence of Jose Mourinho, Bernardo chose the project in Madrid, completely turning his back on Barcelona. Meanwhile, Rodri did the exact opposite. Real Madrid viewed him as the absolute perfect long-term anchor for the center of the pitch. Insiders claim the transfer is practically finalized because Rodri only wants to join one club, Real Madrid. However, Barcelona also knew exactly how revolutionary he could be for their own midfield. So, when the Madrid executives dragged their feet and took too long to finalize his signing, Barcelona immediately explored creative ways to persuade him to choose Camp Nou instead. Barely 24 hours ago, everyone was discussing the high probability of him moving from Manchester City to Real Madrid. But in the last few hours, that seems to have taken a dramatic turn. Alex, reports suggest he is not heading to Real Madrid after all, but is actually on his way to Barcelona, hoping to not only significantly strengthen their own roster, while simultaneously preventing Madrid from securing the very anchor they thought would run their midfield for the next decade. Interestingly, a nearly identical drama played out way back in 2016, right after Portugal won the Euros. Andre Gomez suddenly emerged as one of the most highly coveted young midfielders in Europe. Real Madrid were heavily linked with him, with many major reports even claiming the deal was close to being completed. Then Barca stepped in. Almost overnight, they went directly to Valencia and worked out a deal worth around 42 million euros. Before Madrid had any chance to formulate a response, Barca officially announced Gomez as their newest signing. It was one of the quickest transfer hijacks of that summer, leaving Real Madrid empty-handed with absolutely nothing to show for it. Though you could argue Madrid actually dodged a massive bullet, because he really did not play well for Barca. Next up, we have the legendary war over Neymar. Way back in 2013, Real Madrid had already been tracking the Brazilian phenom since he was just a teenager. Hardly surprising, especially since Florentino Perez absolutely loves recruiting talented young Brazilians. They actually flew a young Neymar to Madrid for a trial and a medical back in 2006, and for years they were convinced they were leading the race to sign him. But Barcelona had completely different plans. The Catalan club had built an incredibly close relationship with Neymar's father and the key investment groups holding his rights. Plus, the ultimate chance to play right next to Lionel Messi and follow the legendary path of Ronaldo made Barcelona look absolutely irresistible to him. Even though Real Madrid reportedly offered much more money, Neymar decided on Campon. Of course, the transfer later sparked massive controversy when the true fee was revealed to be far higher than what Barcelona officially announced, leading to years of intense legal investigations and ultimately forcing the abrupt resignation of their club president, Sandro Rosell. But out on the pitch, this high-stakes gamble could not have worked out any better. Neymar joined forces with Messi and Luis Suarez to create the legendary MSN frontline, firing Barcelona to an incredible treble in 2015. And then we have the chaotic transfer saga of David Villa back in 2010. Long before Villa established himself as one of Barcelona's all-time greats, he actually came incredibly close to signing with Real Madrid. Way back in 2008, Real Madrid launched a massive bid for him while Valencia was drowning in severe financial troubles. However, Valencia's president absolutely refused to sell his star player to their biggest rivals because he was terrified of how the fans would react. Yes, back in those days they were genuine rivals because Valencia was actually a powerhouse team. Just a year later, Madrid moved on and signed Karim Benzema instead, giving Barcelona the perfect opportunity to strike. In 2010, they locked in a €40 million agreement with Valencia, making Villa a Barcelona player right before the World Cup kicked off. That deal proved to be an incredibly brilliant signing, with Villa playing a massive part in Barcelona's golden era of success. Absolutely no one can ever forget his spectacular strike in the 2011 Champions League final, or him scoring twice during that famous 5-0 destruction of Jose Mourinho's Real Madrid. Ironically, just 2 years before that, Barcelona pulled off the exact same move for Dani Alves. It is practically impossible to picture Barcelona without Dani Alves, yet he came remarkably close to wearing white instead of the classic blue and red. Back during his dominant years at Sevilla, he had firmly established himself as the premier right-back in Spain, and Real Madrid pushed aggressively to secure his signature. The brilliant Brazilian later admitted that his move to the Bernabeu was almost a done deal, but Sevilla stood in the way. Sevilla's tough club president Jose Maria Delmedo absolutely refused to budge on his asking price, using interest from other giant clubs to drive the final transfer fee sky high. Eventually, Madrid walked away from negotiations, but Barcelona refused to quit. They agreed to a massive deal worth up to €35.5 million and brought Alves to Camp. The rest is history. Alves went on to become arguably the greatest fullback of all time, capturing 23 trophies with Barcelona and serving as a crucial engine for one of the absolute greatest teams in football history. But for every historic transfer battle Barcelona has won, Real Madrid has consistently responded with a massive blow of their own. And honestly, no single transfer has ever shocked the football world quite like Luis Figo's stunning defection from Barcelona to Real Madrid. At that moment, Figo was Barcelona's beloved captain, undisputed as one of the very best players on earth, and a massive fan favorite. But everything shattered during Real Madrid's chaotic presidential election in 2000. Florentino Perez, who was running for president, made a highly controversial and unbelievable promise. He boldly claimed that if he actually won the election, he would bring the iconic Figo straight to the Bernabeu. Quietly behind the scenes, Perez had already locked in a secret agreement with Figo's agent. That contract included a 1.66 million euro signing bonus and a lethal clause. If Perez won, Figo was legally forced to join Real Madrid. If he backed out, he would personally owe Perez 30 million euros. Figo signed only because he believed Perez had absolutely no chance of winning. He merely wanted to use the agreement as leverage to secure a much better contract with Barcelona. But he was dead wrong. Perez miraculously won the election. Barcelona absolutely refused to pay that massive penalty, so Madrid simply triggered Figo's 60 million euro buyout clause. The hostile transfer naturally sparked absolute fury all across Catalonia. Figo instantly became public enemy number one, culminating in actual pigheads being hurled onto the pitch during his infamous return to Campan. This shocking move also marked the true beginning of Perez's original Galactic project. Just 3 years later, Madrid pulled off yet another massive transfer victory directly over Barcelona. Joan Laporta had built almost his entire presidential campaign around one single massive promise: bring David Beckham straight to Campan. Before the election, you wanted David Beckham, and we were actively talking with the club directors at Manchester United in order to find a realistic way to incorporate Beckham as a player. In fact, Barca genuinely believed they had already reached an official agreement with Manchester United. We actually reached a firm agreement with Manchester United right there in Heathrow Airport. I remember it perfectly. We signed a binding agreement. But while Barcelona was loudly celebrating Laporta's election victory, Florentino Perez was working in absolute silence behind the scenes, ignoring the clubs entirely. Instead, Madua convinced Beckham himself. Within just a few days, Beckham was proudly wearing white instead of the blue and red, and we were just waiting there at that time, desperately hoping for an answer. The final decision only came down after our club elections were over, and by then he had already signed with Real Madrid. That left Barcelona desperate for a backup plan, so they pivoted and signed Ronaldinho instead. Not a bad backup option, since the legendary Brazilian literally rewrote the club's entire destiny. Ronaldinho was already a spectacular talent, but wearing the Blaugrana jersey is what truly transformed him into the undisputed best player on earth. While Spain's two massive giants spend every day fighting over everything, we want to take a moment and show some appreciation. I want to send some massive love and appreciation to our newest supporters here, specifically honoring MFARS 1075, Marcel Mio, and Barca Blawana 11. If I totally butchered any of those names, please just shoot me a private message in the comments, on Twitter, or over on Discord, and I will absolutely correct it in the next video. Our supporters get exclusive perks on our main website, which is otherwise open to the public. Anyone can read the regular site, but our top-tier members get a special deep dive section where I share raw articles and insider information that never even makes it into the actual videos. You can't Google this stuff. It is crafted strictly for our members. Second, you get access to our private Discord server. As we all saw during the World Cup, it is incredibly easy to find yourself surrounded by total morons. So come join a tight-knit community of passionate soccer fans. And third, you get a personal shout-out in these videos. I really wanted to offer these perks to prove that your incredible daily support never goes unnoticed by me. Our growth together has been so incredibly fast and successful that it has practically forced other content creators to scramble for ways to try and discredit everything we do. Despite what those haters might think, our highly detailed videos are not produced by throwing a quick prompt into ChatGPT. There are real, passionate human beings working alongside me on every single project, and we have built a whole team here. So when you guys support our channel, you are absolutely not just supporting me. You are supporting my talented editors and graphic designers. And I honestly cannot believe I have to clarify that they are real, breathing humans. So your incredible backing never goes unappreciated, and since we are only going to continue growing, all that desperate, noisy yapping from the critics on the outside is just going to get louder and louder. So as a tight community, we have to stick closely together, and that is why your backing means everything to me. Now, back to the action. Then there was Marco Asensio, who once looked completely destined to join the ranks of Barcelona. Barcelona had spent months tracking the young Mallorca sensation, even agreeing on a transfer fee of around 4.5 million euros, but the entire deal stalled over how they wanted to pay. Barca wanted to pay in slow installments, acting like a buddy who always promises to pay you back. Nobody wants weekly installments when they are broke, and Mallorca desperately needed that hard cash immediately. That fatal delay blew the door wide open for Real Madrid. Reports say after a quick call from fan Rafael Nadal, President Florentino Perez acted with incredible speed. Real Madrid paid the entire fee up front, wrapping up the transfer almost instantly, and they snatched Asensio right out of Barcelona's hands. Asensio would go on to win 3 Champions League trophies with Real Madrid and routinely humiliated Barca on the big stage. Madrid struck another painful blow in 2017, right after Dani Ceballos was crowned the best player at the European Under-21 Championship. Barca made him a major priority target, but Madrid once again moved much faster. They offered Real Betis more cash than Barca, giving Dani Ceballos a much bigger contract. Within just a few days, one of Spain's absolute brightest midfield prospects was headed to the Bernabeu instead of the Camp Nou. Although, you could easily argue that Barca actually won this battle, because honestly, Dani Ceballos never turned out to be that great anyway. Now, these fierce transfer wars between Barcelona and Real Madrid have been raging since the days when football was only shown in black and white. Just look at the famous tug-of-war over Alfredo Di Stefano. Barcelona were completely convinced they had secured the legendary forward after striking a deal with River Plate, who officially owned his player registration rights. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, Real Madrid negotiated in secret with Millonarios, the Colombian side where Di Stefano was actually playing. This massive dispute grew so incredibly toxic that Spanish football officials proposed an absolutely absurd compromise. Di Stefano would rotate playing seasons between Barcelona and Real Madrid. Seriously, what? I still laugh about this because when I researched it, I could not believe it. Barcelona completely refused. Their entire board resigned in furious protest, and they eventually walked away from the transfer entirely. Instead, Di Stefano signed with Real Madrid permanently, completely rewriting the club's entire history. He led them to 5 consecutive European Cups, establishing himself as one of the greatest legends of all time. Decades later, the fierce battle for Arda Guler proved that absolutely nothing has changed between Spain's 2 ultimate rivals. Initially, Barca looked like they were in complete control. Their sporting director Deco even flew directly to Turkey to meet with the player and his family, while club president Joan Laporta publicly bragged about the ongoing negotiations. Barcelona wanted to sign Arda Guler but leave him on loan at Fenerbahce for an extra year, mainly due to their financial struggles. Madrid saw their chance. Real Madrid came in with more cash up front, threw in massive performance bonuses, and crucially guaranteed Güler a starting spot under Carlo Ancelotti instead of some cheap developmental loan. That sealed it. Güler saw the money. Within 48 hours, he rejected Barca, signed with Real Madrid, and stood holding the jersey at the legendary Santiago Bernabeu. This left Barca completely empty-handed, deeply humiliated after they believed they already won. Look at the bitter history of Real Madrid and Barcelona desperately fighting over the same elite players. This madness is shaped by how Spanish football operates, primarily its unique release clause rules. Under La Liga rules, every single professional player is forced to have a mandatory release clause. If a rival pays that exact buyout figure, the selling team is totally powerless. We saw this exact drama unfold before with stars like Luis Figo and Dani Ceballos, where triggering that very clause let Madrid bypass club negotiations entirely. Both clubs paid a massive bitter price. Losing Figo to Madrid and Neymar to PSG for €222 million forced both clubs to slap €1 billion release clauses on their biggest stars. But keep in mind, nobody expects anyone to pay that. No one pays €1 billion for Gabi. It is simply a legal shield to ensure a hostile rival cannot trigger the release and steal their superstar. And money is not only about the total fee, it is about the timing. Selling teams naturally prefer getting cold cash up front instead of waiting through years of slow installments. And Real Madrid has used that leverage repeatedly. Thanks to their deep pockets, Madrid can easily drop the entire fee up front. Meanwhile, Barca, who have been financially broke for years, constantly need to stretch their payments across endless future installments. That exact cash flow advantage helped Madrid hijack contested signatures like Marco Asensio and Adair. Intense club politics play a massive role here, because unlike other European giants, Madrid and Barcelona are directly owned by their passionate members, the socios. No billionaire corporate owner pulls their strings. Because presidents must survive fierce democratic elections, promising a shiny new superstar is the fastest way to win votes. That posturing drives prices crazy. At the end of the day, this transfer war is a brutal, absolute zero-sum game. When one side secures a world-class talent, the other instantly loses their shot to do the same. A major signing makes one squad significantly stronger while simultaneously bleeding the other of strength. History proves this cold truth over and over. Once Barca beat Madrid to secure Neymar back in 2013, Madrid completely revolutionized their scouting strategy. Instead of chasing established superstars, they poured resources into hunting down young South American prodigies before rivals even noticed them. When Madrid ruthlessly stole Figo from Barcelona in 2000, the consequences were incredibly massive. Barca struggled deeply to recover from losing their beloved captain, while Madrid built the entire Galacticos era on Figo, transforming their brand forever. Even today, with strict financial rules, rising fees and pressure from state-backed clubs, for Real Madrid and Barcelona, every single transfer window is basically just another fierce El Clásico battle. If you felt this intense drama, check out this next story.